Hello, welcome to Platonics. This is the show where we pull apart things that exist out there in the fiction landscape and turn them into games for you to roleplay in at your dining table. My name's Rocky,
And I'm Jords.
and we have a slightly offbeat one this month, inspired by both of our recent viewing experiences.
There's going to be someone with lasers,
Huh?
robots,
No.
um, interstellar politics,
No. Well, there is some politics.
hazardous waste.
Again, you could argue.
Rockwell, what is it that we're going to dissect today?
This month we are talking about Mean Girls.
Mean Girls. You mean the 2004 most quotable movie ever, Mean Girls?
No, I mean the 2024 musical Mean Girls.
Oh, the musical Mean Girls. That's a movie adaptation of a live stage show musical of the movie Mean Girls.
Yes.
Okay, glad we clarified that.
And much like last episode, we're using Mean Girls as a bit of a representative of this whole high school genre. Because there's a few of them. It could be 10 Things I Hate About You. It could be She's the Man. What are the other Shakespearean plays that have been turned into high school dramas?
This is not my field of expertise.
Are you familiar with the fact that 10 Things I Hate About You is adapted from The Taming of the Shrew?
I'm fairly confident we've talked about it on the show at some point in the past.
Yeah.
If not, definitely in one of our jam sessions.
And then She's the Man is the 12th Night, where the whole conceit is a player pretending to be a different gender.
Do we want to do Bridget Jones's Diary in here as a post-high school version then?
Absolutely not.
All right. Mean Girls. What makes it Mean Girls? What's its core identity?
Yeah, I sat back and had a big think about this, because I think we're going to end up with one collection of things that the movie is very much about, and then probably only a subset of those are going to be fun to play. So I think this will be an interesting one where what we end up with is something that feels like Mean Girls, but if you actually, plot it out, it's probably not going to necessarily look exactly like Mean Girls to give the same vibe.
I genuinely think it's going to be a really hard one to capture the vibe at the table, which makes it an exciting challenge.
Yeah. But let's start by pulling it apart before we try and put some pieces of it back together into something game-like.
So, real quick recap of the premise of the film, right? There is a beautiful girl who is entirely unaware of the social structures of high school, who arrives, meets some outcasts, then is immediately inducted into the group of popular, attractive, awful people, and then an event occurs where the boy that she likes is stolen by the head of the bad girls, mean girls, if you will. And then, most of the film is about this character sabotaging the lead girl as best she possibly can, but in the process becomes her.
Yeah.
So, almost one of those, inevitable corruptions, you fight the monsters long enough, eventually you become one.
You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Mean Girls, basically Batman. Basically the same movie. That was a very concise summary, and I think it actually hit a lot of the points that I want to come back to. So I think you're absolutely right. The big thing that is in play in Mean Girls and in all of these movies is status. It's this idea that high school is a pecking order, and there are people at the top, and there are people at the bottom, and sometimes those are individuals, and sometimes they are cliques. And where you fit in the school and how your high school experience is defined almost entirely by your position in this hierarchy, which I think is pretty much the speech that we get at the beginning of the film. It's like, all right, let me lay this out for you. And then she goes through a big list of all of the groups. And it's like, and your experience will be pretty much defined by which of these groups you end up in. And so it's very important that you like choose the right group. But yeah, it is a game about status and like factional warfare and like climbing the ladder.
I think that's a perfect summary of it.
Yeah.
Factional status.
And also like individual status within each of those
Oh
groups.
yeah, it's
but
fractal,
I think it's
right? You zoom in and it's still just like the same battles played out at a smaller scale.
right. Like even within the Mean Girls, there is a pecking order.
Very strongly established one.
Yeah, which is, again, fascinating. So I think the way that this manifests a lot of the time is the thing that they're fighting for is the affections of a boy or a girl, but that's not necessarily what the story is about. The boy or girl is just the prize or the incentive for winning the social game. So like whoever is the queen bee gets to date the hottest boy. And
notably, the hottest boy doesn't have a lot of agency in this.
Yeah.
They are a pawn to be manipulated.
Yeah,
Prize to be won, I think, yeah.
he has no choice in the matter. He will be dated by whoever
Subterfuge
decides
is the best.
Right, it's like you will be dated by whoever is in that slot at the top of the ladder.
Notably, 2004 was before the era of consent, and thus this is okay.
That's before they'd invented consent. But like it goes both ways. Like there are definitely similar ones where winning the heart of the girl is the, I guess, the reward, the goal, the challenge.
And I have hard coded into me. My favorite Disney movie growing up was Aladdin. So whenever I see that sort of like contest for a women's affections, I hear Princess Jasmine's voice saying, "I am not some prize to be won." Like, whoa, they can have agency and choices.
And again, so this is where we start to get into like I feel like the ultimate message of these movies is that you have to leave all of that behind, right? Ultimately, it's a high school story. It's a coming of age story. Ultimately, what they do is they grow out of this. And then, like, obviously at the end of Mean Girls, we get that delicious little like, but the cycle will repeat with the new Mean Girls. But yeah, ultimately they grow out of this, and it's ultimately a like coming of age story where they realize that they don't need to be the top of the ladder to get the boy. They just need to be themselves. So there's this like fascinating crossover, I think, between these and rom-coms in this area where it's like you try all the schemes to get the man and they backfire on you when he finds out about them, and then at the end of the day you fall in love anyway because you just need to be yourself. Like that's the arc of the rom-com, and this one has a similar kind of ending where it's like, actually, to get what you want you just need to be yourself, but I think it's less driven by the romance and more driven by sort of the self-actualization, and you happen to get the boyfriend as a prize, or the girlfriend, or the they friend as the prize, but the real prize was the self-actualization you made along the way, that's the real thing that we learn in high school, is that high school does not matter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's very much about like where you are in the hierarchy. The rewards, romantic or otherwise, are secondary, and certainly any secondary education is not even secondary. Any secondary education is tertiary to the actual events.
Yeah, like you don't come to school to learn things. You come to school to manipulate situations so that people think you're better than everyone else.
Exactly.
Like, we have a perfect example of that in the film, where Lindsay Lohan's character Katie is actually really good at maths, but pretends to be really bad at maths to manipulate the situation so that she gets more alone time with the boy.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how that plays out, because it's very easy to say, oh, the whole thing is about social status. What does that actually look like? What are the like moments that is sort of crystallized by?
We have this fish out of water situation where it's someone who has no preconceptions and no understanding of the established order and walks in and just like becomes friends with, unfortunately for her, the outcasts. But that news doesn't travel that fast. And then she, unfortunately for her, becomes friends with the plastics, right? The mean girls, the ones that everybody knows, everyone thinks is the coolest, and they're at the top. So she's simultaneously like in two worlds, the top of the strata and the bottom of the strata. And she recognizes that the ones at the bottom are actually nice people. You know, they've got their issues, as we all do, but they're nice people. And the ones at the top don't give a shit about anyone else or feelings or anything. Like, they are there to play the game and stay at the top.
Okay.
And then we get into the hijinks of Katie finding out that the boy that she is instantly attracted to without ever having spoken to is off limits for her to pursue because of a social rule. He is Regina George's ex-boyfriend. So she's not allowed to go there.
The way that she sees to get around that is not to realize that social rules are bullshit.
All made up.
But to manipulate the social situation. I think that's kind of where the meat of the story is. We get introduced to this whole setup very, very quickly through the sort of start of the film. And then we quickly go into like the hijinks.
And they're all just situations.
The highest jinx.
Like, something uncomfortable could occur. Like, there is potential for embarrassment or shame to occur. And that's the stakes.
Yeah, that is the damage. It is emotional damage.
Yeah. Like, we know that there's no like monetary aspect, there's no violence aspect. It's all purely social currency on the line.
Right. Your hit points are like shame points. Yeah. So some of the examples of this from the film are, I mean, it's the whole scheme, right? It's the like telling her boyfriend that she's cheating. It's the like giving her the weight gain bars, and these sort of come together in the like, you can't sit with us moment.
Before we get to that point though, we have established rules for these people. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. That is a rule, right? And she violates that rule.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It is like we have this set of norms and rules, and like those form part of the arsenal, right? Like those are
They're perfectly arbitrary, but breaking them has consequence.
They get weaponized.
So yeah, exactly. Like the hijinks ensue around how can we manufacture a situation that rule will be broken.
Right. So that, yeah, you're right. So that leads into the weight gain bars, because if she can't fit into any of her pink clothes, then she can't sit with them on Wednesdays, because on Wednesdays we wear pink. And then of course we get the like Uno reverse where Regina manufactures the burn book situation, and it's like, but the only girl who's not in it is Katie. And that is a similar like a nuclear level one, but it's a similar like, we have this set of rules about how things work, and they've been weaponized by one person or other to change their position in the social hierarchy.
As a side note, for like an exploration of upsetting the status quo, the burn book event where Regina George photocopies it and just starts distributing it across the school, and like the absolute mayhem that ensues is a perfect example of like a D&D equivalent of the invading army attacks and the entire status quo is thrown out the window. The social order collapses and all the old rules no longer hold true. Something like that. It is such a monumental, like pivotal shift in the way things were to the way things are now. I absolutely love it for like nuclear, I think, is a great way of describing it. In this tiny microcosm with such stratified layers of social hierarchy, it all gets blown up.
It is a social atomic bomb.
All the secrets were laid bare.
Yeah, I think that's another one. I think if you're like looking at things that become weapons, it's like rules become weapons and secrets become weapons very quickly. So
If you know that someone else has broken a rule, you have power.
Yeah,
You choose when to deploy it.
Yeah, there is like weaponized gossip almost. I think the other thing that's really important, even within the groups, which we kind of touched on earlier, even within the groups, there is a status and a hierarchy. And so that leads to even the people who are like nominally your allies, nominally inside your clique, you have gossip and you have betrayals and you have backstabbing, right? Like these are only ever allies of convenience. And if you have something that can like put you on top of the school, then you will use that thing. There's no loyalty inside groups. It's only held together by what she has on you.
There's this internal tension within a clique where like, what can you do to ascend to the highest level of the clique? But then there's also the like, what's my price for betraying my clique so that I can get into someone else's higher up that ladder? So we have this ladder built of ladders.
Yeah. It's a
really rich space to play in.
It is actually like quite fascinating. What have we got so far? We have a very complex social ladder, both inside the cliques and outside the cliques. We know that power takes the form of rules and gossip. Those are our like weapons that we're working with.
We've got all these different factions that have their own internal sets of rules, like the currency that they have within them is determined by themselves, like they're self-governing entities.
And we have a person who is kind of, in quote marks, the reward as a boyfriend or a girlfriend. There is some like benefit to being on top of the pile, and that benefit is that you get to date the hottest person. Usually. I
feel a real notable point about that person is they can be seen to be above it all and not playing the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they are the most privileged person.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, they're a member of the best sports team or something like that, or their parents are rich, and it's like, they don't even have to try, so they can think they're above it all, but it's only because their socioeconomic status is so fucking good.
It's like, Regina George runs the school. It's like, sure, she runs the school, but the actual person at the top of the social hierarchy, the, like, monarch to her prime minister, if you like, is the quarterback, right? Like, it's the boy, because whoever gets to date the boy is on top of the pile, or whoever is on top of the pile gets to date the boy. So like, he is the true top, but he wields no actual executive power, which is fascinating. And I don't think it's a coincidence that in this particular case, it's like, oh, well, all the girls are fighting, but at the top, there's still like a straight white man.
Yeah, that really checks out. Historically accurate.
We could unpack that for days in a different podcast. But we're not going to. Instead, we're going to turn it into a game. Is there anything that you think we've missed?
Nothing that I think is core. I think everything else is something like that. That is the structure of Mean Girls. And I think we can build lots of content that can fit into that structure, where that content can take many different shapes. All those hijinks and the scenes and the scenarios that we produce here can take many forms that are super relatable.
Shall we dive into that then?
Let's. So, what are you going to prep? How are we going to make this a thing?
So, like so often, I think we have to start with our goal. I think we have to start with our thing that we're trying to attain. Like, what is the thing that being on top of the school ladder entails? Is it dating a boy or a girl? Is it something more, I guess, more concrete if you're not comfortable with that dating thing? And maybe we could have a chat about how we do that. But maybe it's something more like, who is going to be voted prom queen?
Yeah.
or
So
prom
super
king.
American thing where it's like, oh no, somebody gets to rule this place.
Yeah, there is a literal popularity contest, and it's a vote. We're going to vote for the prom queen. Yeah, something like that where we know what the reward is. I don't think that has to be super complicated, but you do need to, I think, put that down on the table at the start of the game as like,
This is
the hottest boy in
stakes.
school is newly single, or prom is coming up and we need to decide who's prom queen, or something like that. Like it could be like, hey, we've got to pick who. I think you could do a version of this where it's set within a particular clique. It's like, we need to pick who the mathletes are who get to go to regionals, whatever the fuck regionals are. You could run a very similar kind of a game set entirely within, for example, Glee Club, right? Like it doesn't have to interact with the rest of the school. You can run this whole thing within a clique.
So step 1 is define the scope of it, and step 2 is choose a prize worthy of that scope.
Exactly.
However mundane it is.
Really, the more mundane, the better. It's like,
I love that. I love it when like you're playing this game with like 4 other friends, like things are getting heated in there, and then you zoom out for a moment and you're like, oh man, we got really intense about who got to get selected to go to mathlete regionals.
right? It's like we are really fighting a lot about who gets to sit on the one non-dodgy chair in the cafeteria. Like it could be something that is like,
Which is obviously a throne.
There's one like bench that is, it's like, it's got 4 good chairs. It's like not too sticky. It's close to the front of the queue. Like there's literally like a prime position in the cafeteria. We are jockeying for it.
I love that the qualifier is not too sticky.
Yeah,
it's everything is at least a little bit sticky, but this one is the least.
Yeah.
So we've got ourselves like a scope, a boundary of where this like social hierarchy is going to sit, and then we've got a clear objective of the thing that is worth pursuing, something that everybody values. Mm-hmm. Next step down, I would start spinning up factions.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, depending on how big we want to make this, factions with sub-factions. You know, if we're doing it as like Glee Club, probably don't need too many sub-factions in there. You know, like the individuals might just be the things that are. Man, get a linguist to dissect that sentence. And then if we're going to do something that's like a bit bigger, like on the scale of Mean Girls, a clique might be, you know, a dozen people, which means that there could be 2 to 3 factions within each of those cliques. Depends on how much extra value that's going to provide and how much extra bookkeeping you want to do.
Okay.
So when we're spinning up a faction, we need to have like a couple of motivations and drivers for them, right? First up, there has to be like an easy name for them. There's got to be like what their turf is, what area they hang out in. If we're going to bound this within school, then yeah, that's absolutely like, you know, the computer nerds hang out in the computer lab. That's nice and easy. Then we've got to have the things that they want. And we've got to have reasons why they can't just have those things. What are the boundaries that are holding them back? What are the strengths that they have? What can they offer? Because their power has to be incomplete. Every faction has to have incomplete power, which means that they have to interact with each other to try and maneuver or jockey.
Right. They've all got something that another faction wants. And probably every player has something that another player wants as well.
Yeah. Something valuable that's unique to them. You know, the upsetting thing about the Mean Girls is everybody wants to be them because they have popularity and they're beautiful. That's their thing of value.
Yep.
It's not a skill.
Yeah, you could almost frame this as a like Quiet Year style, like every faction has an abundance and a scarcity, right? Or some scarcities, more than one scarcity. And that kind of gives you some things that you know they're going to want to fill, but also a thing that they have that they can offer other factions.
Yeah, something that they can jockey and trade social influence for. Like, if you get me into this party, I will hack the computers and change your grades at school or something like that.
Yeah, very Ferris Bueller. I like it.
And then within those factions, we've got to have a couple different NPCs. I think when you're typically dealing with a faction, you just have a single NPC be its face. But if we are going to go to the lengths of having sub-factions that you can play off against each other internally, then you need to have at least one representative for each of those. So what that looks like is a dickload of NPCs.
Oh, yeah. To the point where, like, I'm not usually a huge fan of, like, rolling things on random tables and just using what comes out. But I think at this point, I would just roll things on random tables and use what comes out.
Certainly having something to help generate them on the fly would be very handy. All right, so we've got our factions. Then what?
I think we need to have some arenas for our shenanigans to take place in. I think that's very important that the shenanigans are, like, player planned. But I think we need to give them the context, some environments, some actionable environments for those to happen in. And I think those can be like physical environments. They can be like the cafeteria, but I think they can also be events. So it'll be things like the prom, the varsity football game, like
the party at the parents'
the
house.
party at the parents' house while someone's out. So you you set up some key events in key locales that you know are going to happen, and then you make sure that those are filled with opportunities, affordances, if you like, for status changing antics. And then I think once you start playing, you let the players loose in those. And I think it's a good idea to, I don't necessarily think you have to do the ones that you prepped. Like if one of the players is like, I want to host a party while my parents are out, like, and you haven't prepped that, like, I think that's great. I think you just roll with it.
The cool thing about most of these things is you're not prepping from scratch. If you've lived through high school, you have the right cultural basis to draw these things from and just use your own experience.
Yeah. Or don't do that if that's going to be too traumatic for you. But yeah, I would not require that these are the beats that we hit, but I would absolutely prep some so that we have things that we can put in front of the players if they are like struggling for what to do. And I don't think too many of them will. I don't think you need to go overboard, but saying like you receive an invitation to a party at someone's house, like having that as a thing that you can like put on the table, like how are you going to engineer this so that you bring shame to someone? Are you going to like make sure that someone shows up wearing the wrong kind of costume? Are you going to like show wearing the same thing as someone else? Like,
I think there's so much here where whatever you've prepped, you can look at it and think, what are the things that are valuable and where is the power in this? So it's like, maybe you don't just get an invitation to a party. Maybe you have to engineer getting the invitation.
Right. It's like, maybe you're not invited to the party.
Yeah.
But you want to go. How are you going to get invited?
And maybe it is like, you got to start doing some favors for some people who are invited so you get to be +1s.
Everyone's got to find a date.
Like, there's so much social trade going on here. And I feel like it's not quite a zero-sum game, but I don't think there's a lot of net gains. So when somebody gains social status, somebody else loses it.
Oh, yeah.
If you move up the ladder, the other rungs have to go down.
Because you've pushed someone down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, I think
in the context of the +1s of the party, it's straight up like, oh yeah, we're the computer nerds and we needed to get in there because, you know, I needed access to some privacy violating computer stuff at their parents' house or something. I don't know.
No, you know what it is? It's like, we need to talk to this person, but the only place we can get them alone is like at the party. It would be suicide for us to approach their table in the cafeteria, but like, we want to talk to this person.
Yes.
So we need to go to the party because that's the only place we can be seen talking to
That's
them.
much better. I was thinking it's like, oh no, we're going to get like their family photos and post them on the like school interweb or something like that.
Like all that. It's like, we got to get to this. We got to get to the Mean Girls room and like go and find the like the burn book in their closet or whatever, or find the like embarrassing pictures of her when she had braces. Like,
yes, that's exactly the vibe I was going for. at any rate, by you being somebody else's +1, the person who brought you loses one notch.
Absolutely. Like, why
But
did
they
you
gain
bring
something
him?
else.
That's gross.
Yeah.
I
You're
can't
like,
believe you
but-
brought. I can't believe you brought D&D Greg to the party. Did you ever watch like the Homestar Runner cartoons?
Bits and pieces, yeah.
Did you ever see Teen Girl Squad? Because that's now the new like goal is like, can you be? Because there's Teen Girl Squad has cheerleader, who's the pretty one. There's so and so who's the smart one. There's what's her face who's the like vaguely grubby emo one, and then there's the ugly one who's the ugly one.
I gotta go back and watch this. I love
And then
it when
there's
it's like, let's reduce them to archetypes.
Yeah, and then there's an alternative group, which is 4 Gregs. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 5, 4 Gregs. There's D&D Greg, 1 Greg. Open Source Greg, 2 Gregs. Science Fiction Greg, 3 Gregs. And Japanese Culture Greg, 4 Gregs.
So much variety.
Yeah.
I love that Greg is a substrate upon which you can build one other identity.
But yeah, that's very much the vibe. It's like, why have you brought Open Source Greg to the party? It's like, because he said he would hack into the mainframe and change my grades for me.
You know what this looks like for me? As a prep thing? Mm-hmm. I'm going to get a bunch of those like magnetic strips for my whiteboard. And people's names are going to go on them. And as you maneuver and shift the social hierarchy, we are literally sliding people down and slapping you up higher.
Like a ladder, like literally a ladder. Yeah.
I want that visible as the play aid the whole time.
That's the game now. The game is like, you get that algorithm for ranking chess players, and you do an ELO
My
comparison
social ELO.
for each of them.
You're like, this is amazing. If they engage in this, he's got almost nothing to lose, but his opponent could fall so far.
Like, literally, that is the game mechanic now. My new game is just ranking people from best to worst.
I legitimately think we've got it all. We've got the prize that sits at the top of the social hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a social hierarchy. We've got our factions and sub-factions if necessary. And we've got a couple back pocket arenas for these shenanigans to play out.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got all those motivations and you've got these arenas that you can slot people into, I think you've got a really robust structure here to generate play.
I do too. And I really like that way that you phrased it is like, there is a social ladder and the prize is at the top of the ladder, and we are literally climbing over each other to get to the prize at the top. Like, that is just such a perfect metaphor for what we're doing. And I think it works really well as like a visual play aid of like, whoever's at the top at the end gets the prize. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that works really well.
What does that look like for our actual players? It looks like trying to advance their faction as high as they can, while simultaneously jockeying for internal position to be the top of their faction. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
and I think that gives us exactly the kind of play dynamic that we want.
There's no altruism here. We learn altruism after the game ends.
Yeah. And I don't even think, I alluded to before, I don't think we need to have the whole arc of the movie play out. I don't necessarily think we need the bit at the end where they realize they just need to be themselves.
No,
I think
I don't want that at all.
This is plenty fun, and maybe even more fun if we're just horrible to each other.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of safety at the start of this one to be like, hey guys, this game's going to be full of betrayals of the pettiest varieties.
We're just going to spend like 3 hours being awful to each other, and it's going to be great fun.
It's going to be cathartic, right? It's going to be like high school, but if you didn't suck at the time.
This is the high school do-over that you wanted. If you could go back and be your current smart, suave, smooth self.
Yes, my lady.
Yeah, I think that's great. Given that, I'm going to ask you the other thing that I'm trying to do a bit more of this season, which is in our 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever, we know we've got a couple of scenarios that we want to get to. We know we've got a little bit of an intro we want to do at the start, probably some kind of finisher at the end, whether it's the prom queen crowning or the first date or the football game where the quarterback comes over and makes out with you at the end when he scores the winning goal. Like, we know we've got a start point and an end point. How much content are we trying to fit in between that initiating scene and that like finale? How are you structuring that couple of hours?
Now, this one I think would be actually kind of tricky to play out in a single session unless you greatly narrow the scope of what factions are in play, right? You can't maneuver half a dozen factions in one session while giving a justified amount of screen time to all of them. So now it's this one's going down and I've won over that one and now we go over to this. I don't think that's a fun thing to play.
I do think you would need to simplify it if you wanted to get through it in one session.
So we're bringing it down to like 2 other factions, maybe 3 tops.
And I think that's probably plenty. Again, I think we often fall into this trap of like, we need to prep lots and lots and lots of factions. It's like actually, we probably only need, I would say the bare minimum is like your faction and then 2 others. You need one to be above you and one to be below you. One you can climb over and one you can step on to get there. So I think you're simplifying it down quite a lot. I do think because everyone is so two-dimensional or like plastic, if you will, these characters are so paper thin. I don't think it's going to be super fun to play them for a long period of time. I think if you got to more than 2 sessions, I think things would start to fall over.
I reckon you could probably push it out to about 4 or 5. I think so. Like I'm thinking
that's too long for me to spend back in high school.
I want to spend 20 hours in school again.
Like literally, we want to skip to the good bits, just the funny parts.
I reckon it could be done if you had like a couple of other factions in play, and your group likes to sit in the characters and role play for a little bit. Like lots of dialogue, lots of banter, then
that's
I reckon
true.
You could easily play it out for a couple sessions and have significant shifts occur in between each session.
I think this could be a fun one to have a like in-character text chat between sessions. If you were going to split it across a couple of sessions, I would like create a text chat in a platform where you can set handles and like have group chats. I
would love that as a, like, the GM never posts in the in-character group chat, but in between sessions, just start shit with people on the side.
Yeah, just like you send a piece of gossip to another player, and then it's like, send this to one other person. It's like, did you hear
Absolutely,
what Katie did?
That would be so much fun. Oh, God, I would love to be the GM just stirring the pot. Having no stake in the fight and just stirring the pot is the best position to be in. That's how you win politics.
I may have changed my mind. I may think this is something that you need to play over at least 2 sessions with a text thread now.
I really think like 4, I think would be a great spot for me. And that gives genuine weight to like the seismic shifts in social hierarchy that you're going to be going through.
I think if you were going over 4 sessions, I think you have 1 arena per session. I think one session...
2. About that.
You can almost play it out in real time, right? It's like, and this week is the party and next week is the football game, and like each time you come in, you're role playing through one event. Yeah.
If you set it as like it's a solid, like you have to make big moves because in real time it's approaching.
Yeah.
And if you're not at the top of that hierarchy, then at the end of the day, Queen Bee of the rival faction is going to get that smooch.
Yeah. So I think that could be a really good way to play through it. I think if you were trying to cram it down into one session, I think you're playing at a much higher level. You're playing much more like fast and loose, much more abstract, much more like cardboard cutout characters.
Yeah, and I think we're not living in the character for nearly so long. Dialogue scenes are not heavy.
I think we're aiming for 3 things. I think you have a like 3 scenes in a session, and then we have our like conclusion. You have the cafeteria scene, the party scene, and then the, prom scene or something. 3 scenes to advance your agenda, and then whoever's on top at the end wins. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, playing through this in real time would be hella fun.
I think I would get more enjoyment out of not running this as a single one-shot and instead having people leave the first session being like, I have such a petty hatred towards this other character and I can't wait to come back next week and destroy them.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that in-game chat at the end, just dropping so many affordances into that, where it's like, oh yeah, did you hear that this person's parents want to pull them out of school because they're failing? And it's like, you don't have to do anything with it. You're just providing all these opportunities for the players to hook into and turn it to their advantage.
Yep.
Did you hear that this person got caught making out with that person behind the bleachers?
Yeah, and I think we're really straddling that line between like, it's almost a LARP at this point, and I'm okay with that. like how far can we push this? If it's a costume party, do they have to come to the session in costume?
Yes. I love that. I really love that. Since the first like D&D finale I had where all my players came dressed up. Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah. And maybe you
Especially
do
one
like...
of my friends like greened everything, greened all her skin because she was playing a half orc. And I'm like, this is the dedication I want to see.
Shit, yeah. I'm thinking like you have the party as one of the scenes and you show up and you've got like a bowl of spiked punch. And like chips on the table.
Red Solo cups.
Yeah, like a keg. There's a keg.
But at our age and demographic, it's like one of those quarter kegs of nice beer.
Of like delightful
nice
craft beer. I have a keg of... It should be a keg of Budweiser. It's actually a keg of like an extremely nice craft Nipah.
It's like a 47 on the IBU scale.
It's 4.7%, so it's quite sessionable. Dry hopped. Quite resinous.
It's got a really nice mouthfeel. Very malty at
quite
the back
smooth.
end.
Yeah. No. Things no one has ever said about a keg of Bud.
Hey, this tastes like rice. All right. I reckon we've got it. I think this is it. I think we've got our full recap top to bottom is where we're going to prep a clear scope with a very tangible objective of what it is you're trying to reach that can only be attained by being at the top of the social hierarchy. We've got ourselves a couple of factions and sub-factions as necessary, each one represented by an NPC. We've got some arenas where shit can start popping off that are hopefully quite relatable, and we've dumped a bunch of gunpowder into a group chat that anyone with a lighter can start sparking off.
Absolutely. In terms of play aids, I'm absolutely doing that group chat one. I think there's probably even a way to make it work in a single session, passing notes somehow. But I'm also I
love the idea of as the GM, you just have a bunch of little pre-written
with
rumors,
horrible things on them.
And then you just slide them across the table and it's up to that person to drop it in the group chat and everyone else to check it.
But you're writing it on there with a pink glitter pen and hearts on all the eyes.
Aesthetic is big here.
Sliding it across the table.
And I've also got the secondary play aid of my physical social hierarchy.
I was going to say that's absolutely a thing I'm bringing in. I'm bringing in my whiteboard, but we're not using it face flat down on the table as a battle map. I am propping it up and we are putting everyone's names on there and we are who is on top of the social hierarchy after this round. And I think that would be a really fun way to gamify this and turn that soft hierarchy into no, there's actual winners here.
So it feels like every interaction boils down to who wins, who loses, and then would trade positions on the hierarchy a little bit. This person's a -1, you're a +1. That's your shift.
And then as many props as you can get your hands on, pink pens with fluffy things on the ends, encourage costumes, yeah.
Get everyone to dress like it's 2004, which is the best era of dress and has already come back into fashion with Gen Zs now.
My goodness. Excellent. I feel like this is a very natural point to transition into talking about game systems, because I feel like we have designed a lot of things that will fit around that game system. And all we need now is some kind of core mechanic to like make the thing work.
I got two, as always.
Is one of them Blades in the Dark?
It is. There is a game called Court of Blades, which I think could very easily be adapted aesthetically into this. It literally has a shame mechanic.
Very nice.
And it's all about playing that factional game like over a longer period of time to maneuver for better social hierarchy. So like,
I love
there's
that.
lots of cloak and daggers. It's just the daggers are all words and secrets.
Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think the distinction between heist and downtime that's kind of built into a lot of those Forged in the Dark type games works quite well with like, you have the event at which you're trying to pull off your shenanigans, and then you have the aftermath, and the downtime can almost be that text chat out of the game. So you only come in, you run the job, in quote marks, that what would be in Blade's terminology, the job, and then your downtime happens between sessions in the chat. I think that could actually work really well, especially if there is a courtly intrigue variant that just needs some names changed.
I would be very keen to give it a whirl in that and have it play out over, 4-ish sessions.
Yeah, me too.
I do have another game that I've never played, but I've heard of from the Ludonarrative Dissidents podcast, and it feels like a really good fit. I think I've even brought it up on our show in the past. It's called Best Friends.
I love it already.
And it is written by Gregor Hutton. So the pitch is Best Friends is a role-playing game about girlfriends and all their petty hatreds, where you don't really choose your own stats. Your stats are determined by how everyone else views you.
Yeah, we have talked about this on the show before, although now that we mention it, maybe it's in a bit that I cut.
Oh, I see.
But it could be, I've definitely heard you talk about this before, and then your stats are defined by like what the person next to you is jealous of, right?
Yeah, you say like the line is, I hate, insert someone's name, because she is prettier than me, cooler than me, tougher than me, richer than me.
Yeah.
And if like the 4 other players at the table all hate you because you're richer than them, then you are like rich 4 as your status. So like from the get-go, the way that you are building your characters is relative to each other, and you build out this hierarchy across a couple different stats.
I like that a lot. How does it do with like depth? Are these characters going to be robust enough to survive 4 sessions, or is this very much a one-shot style game?
I genuinely don't know, and I don't think they are robust. I think this is a rules light, fun, short game to play.
But I think that's okay, because all we really need to steal from the game, we have built the campaign structure. All we really need to steal is a core mechanic. Yeah. And so maybe it would work for that. This is one of those ones where it's like, we started with, we're designing a session or a campaign, and it's like, we have designed 60% of a game, and we're just gonna put something in the middle to make it all run. That one could be fun.
I'd be willing to give that one a shot for sure. The stakes have never been lower, unlike in-game where they've never been higher.
Here is I spoiled this a little bit earlier by dropping the name of this game before the system section. My thermonuclear burn book take is I would run this as a mod of the Quiet Year. And
I thought you were going to say that.
That is an absolutely sacrilegious thing to say, because the Quiet Year is supposed to be this beautiful, thoughtful game, and
of a community rebuilding.
Exactly, it's a community rebuilding, and then the sequel is even more so, because it's about a community in the process of decolonizing. They're supposed to be raw and tense and meaningful. I'm like, but what if it was in high school? Because there's all these concepts in the game there's a couple of things that I think would work quite well. First of all, everyone gets to be in that position you were talking about before. Everyone gets to be the puppet master. Everyone gets to be like maneuvering the players around. So I think it's a lot easier to let horrible things happen to quote unquote your character and do horrible things to another person's character if you're like one step above them and you're like masterminding the situation as a whole. And I think the other thing is that does free you up to possibly have a scenario where we get to do that bit where everyone actually learns at the end that maybe they just have to be themselves.
When the Frost Shepherds arrive.
When the Frost Shepherds arrive. But also, especially the Dark Forest, which is the sequel, has some really interesting mechanics for like contempt and feeling like you've been wronged, and ways to use those. You'd have to go through and rewrite all of the cards to be things like, there is a party at the popular kid's house, like who isn't invited and why, right? Like that, those kind of things become your prompts. And it is, as I said, it's a horrific perversion of a beautiful game for a horrible purpose. But I just think it would be quite fun.
I reckon you could take that last sentence out of context and apply it to most things in our life. It's very, very bad, but I think it'd be fun. I think that'd be a very interesting and quite different play experience as well, as a like a GM-less type game where you're all puppet mastering the full like gamut of pieces on the board all the time.
Yeah.
To just see who comes out on top.
It's a bit different to what we described, but I think it could be a fun one to do. What about our favorite system? What about Dungeons and Dragons?
Now, full disclosure, I did a little bit of looking around on the net before this episode to be like, has anyone even tried this before in D&D? Which has just so little support for any of the stuff that we've discussed here. Right? If you were to do this in D&D, you would be cutting so much of the rules out. Like we explicitly established that violence cannot be one of the mechanisms by which to advance your social hierarchy here.
So unless it's like, getting hit by a bus.
It's super counter. That's sleight of hand, though. I didn't even see her push her.
Did she push her?
Yeah. The only way I could reconcile running this in 5e is if you lost most of your abilities to make it work.
Mm.
And in fact, when I went looking, I found a Reddit thread where someone was like, in the D&D subreddit, has anyone ever tried to run a Mean Girls campaign? And almost every comment was, don't. This is not the right system. You need a different game.
It's really not.
I'm really happy to see, like, even within that microcosm where people will try and make D&D fit any square-shaped hole they want, this might actually be its genuine limit.
I'm going to do my usual shtick of playing devil's advocate and like try and make it work anyway. I think if I was going to do this, this would be like a fun episode in an ongoing campaign. So this would be like, maybe one or two players can't make it this week. Maybe it's like, we know we're about to go into the final boss battle and this is our like
clips episode type thing.
It's our beach episode.
Yeah.
It's the little downbeat before the finale. You run it as a flashback and you import those existing characters into a high school setting and be like, yeah, what was it like for your characters to go to high school together? Or what would it be like if they had gone to high school together? I think you strip it all the way back to just the core mechanic. I think you delete all their abilities. I think you delete all of their skills. I think you just have like your basic stats of like strength, charisma, dexterity, and you use that as a core mechanic along with the players' hopefully established understandings of what their characters are like now and what their characters would have been like in high school, so that it still feels like the same characters. And then you just run the campaign session that we've kind of talked about and offload almost all of that social jockeying onto that leaderboard, and you run each of those events, the party, the football game, whatever it is, just run those as a skill challenge-esque, like everyone takes a turn to declare a thing that they're going to try and do to change the situation, and then they roll for it. And I would let the player's ability to role play their characters do most of the heavy lifting, and like the joy of like just being awful to each other in a high school environment, but like with these characters who we've kind of come to know, I would let that fill most of the novelty and provide most of the joy.
You could frame it as something like it's a master illusionist wizard who's pulled you into this thing and regressed you back. Like, there's a reason you could hand wave it all away with a bit of magic and try and do it. It's like, why would a barbarian and a warlock and oh god, the warlock is obviously like a teacher's pet, and their patron is just straight up the teacher they suck up to the most.
So you've done your usual thing of like, I would never run this in 5e, and now you're thinking of like all the fun ways that you could do this in 5e. Like,
yeah,
I
like,
think...
why would the book nerd wizard who lives in the library, and the barbarian who is the sports jock, and the warlock who just absolutely cannot get enough of the maths teacher, and
right? Like
the bard who's the pretty boy.
I think that's the fun of it, right?
Why would they hang out? That feels a bit more Babysitter's Club.
It is mapping those classes back onto like, yeah, of course the barbarian is on the football team, and like, of course the wizard is the mathlete, and like the warlock is the teachers. Like, that is the fun of it.
And the monk is the kid who watches too much anime.
Yeah, I think that's how I would do it. Either that, or explicitly say like, this is not canon. This is just like,
yes,
this is just a high school AU. This is fan fiction. We're writing fan fiction about our own characters now. And I think that's also fine.
The only way out of the wizard's illusion is to
kiss
be
the
best
cheerleader
at school.
Yeah. Become cheer captain.
That.
And then the illusion shatters.
The illusion shatters because you know deep down that you never would have been at the top of the social hierarchy in school. So it's like a paradox that breaks the illusionary reality.
That's
Look,
how
I'm still not going to run it in 5e.
That's fair. It is super dependent on a thing that you would never do, which is having a long-running 5e campaign. So,
not anymore. I've done my time in the 5e mines.
Last question: would you run this?
I absolutely would. I came into this thinking like, it's actually going to be really hard. I think this is very far off my typical wheelhouse in this context. And after sitting here and like hashing it out with you and riffing on this, I think we've actually got quite a robust structure and a lot of ways that this can be gamed. I would be hyped to run this.
I also came in with a like, I have a lot of notes on what the movie was like. I have no idea how we turn this into a game. And now I'm like, when can we do it?
This is bounded creativity at its finest.
Yeah. We're both big fans, as you might be able to tell from the entire show. We're both big fans of like, if you can find a good structure, it's very easy to have the content fall into place. Like, once we know what shape the box is, it's very easy to color inside the lines.
I think this is a really good example of us jiving super well.
This is a great episode that we've just done. Good job.
You are
Good
welcome,
job,
listener.
Excellent. Should we call it there then?
I think so.
Fantastic. This has been Playtonics. As always, I have been Rocky.
And I'm still Jords.
You can find us on the web at playtonics.net. That's playtonics.net. And if you have ideas for what you would like to see us give this treatment to, you can send us an email to hello@playtonics.net. We're also on social media. You can slide into our DMs with suggestions, ideas, comments, thoughts, really anything you like. Memes, love a meme. We're on pretty much all the text-based platforms, so Mastodon, Blue Sky, and Threads. And we also have an Instagram account as well.
And Reddit.
Jordan has been super active on Reddit, so if you see u/Playtonics posting hot takes in r/RPG, fang us an updoot. The other thing you can do, just to jump back to our website, we do have a newsletter where we send out pings about new episodes, but also we're experimenting with some content that is just for that. Right now there's a write-up of our D&D episode that you can get to if you sign up, but I expect we will be adding more stuff to that as well.
We've also had like a bit of interaction that indicates people might be interested in a Discord. If you are keen on that, again, flick us a message somewhere, and we'll look at setting one
anywhere.
up.
Just pick a place and say hi. We're not fussy. We're not picky. That's it. That's it for this week. This far out. I made it through a whole episode without saying week, and then I said it right at the end.
Don't worry. When we get to season 10 and you're still doing this, I will still say month, not week.
That's it for this month. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.